I'm Tennille.
And I'm Kelsey, and we're financial advisors from Alman Partners True Wealth, bringing you thought-provoking conversations around you, your money and your life on the Wealth Experience podcast. Hi listeners, welcome back to Wealth Experience, the podcast where we break down the dollars and cents of your financial future. I'm your host Kelsey, and today I'm joined by Ashleigh Thompson. Welcome, Ash.
Thank you.
She's another financial advisor at Alman Partners. You might be familiar with her from the ABC Tropical Radio on occasions as well. And we're here to talk about today's episode, as per the title, which is Midlife Financial Crisis. So, Ash, we all know what a midlife crisis is. But what's a midlife financial crisis? Tell me about it. I know this is something that you're passionate to speak about today.
Yeah, definitely, because it's a big one, right? So everyone, as you said, everyone knows what a midlife crisis is, and that's typically between the ages of, say, 40 to 60. We get through that point of our lives where we've worked so hard, we've done a lot of work, and we start making some decisions to bring some flamboyance to our life. We start buying classic cars, and we start riding a motorcycle, and we start getting tattoos and some things like that. And we're looking for those things that are going to make our lives better and more exciting. So I wonder
where that comes from though, right? It's kind of like at that age there becomes this sudden desire for change, and people start kind of questioning, well, what are my values? What am I doing with my life? Who am I? Because usually you just come off the back end of, in that age group, raising a family. You've made your career now, possibly at that point in time. Yeah. And there's just big question marks that start happening that maybe trigger these behaviours. So when we think about that, and so we've got people making these decisions that are midlife crisis in terms of their behaviour, how does that then relate to the finance part? What are we seeing?
Well, this kind of coincides with people actually making a little bit more money, right? Right in the very beginning. So essentially we see kind of 3 stages, let's say. And the very first stage is like in the early years is where we probably don't have a lot of money. We have large mortgages. We're starting to raise a family, all those sorts of things. So, our finances are tied up. They're already, they're exhausted, the poor thing. So, you get to the point where there's that midlife where perhaps the kids are starting to move out. Your career has probably evolved at that point in time. You may be making a little bit more money. You've reduced some of the debt. So you sort of reach a bit of a crossroads, I want to say, where you have to make some decisions. And hopefully they're smart ones. But this is where it coincides, right? Because you then going, okay, well, I've got this extra money. What should I be doing with it? And when you're staring down the barrel of a midlife crisis, the normal version, buying classic cars and things like that, there can be some buyer's remorse there. There's and equally, you don't really know if you're not equipped with the education and the knowledge around finances. This sort of stage can be really daunting because, you didn't probably have to think about it before. And now with the extra money that you're perhaps making or you're just staring down the barrel of retirement, right? You're like, what should I be doing now that is going to help me move into my next stage of life? And that can be really daunting. And
like you're saying, it's kind of like you reach that midlife momentum where there's 2 ways that you can go. You can either then go, well, we're not in survival mode anymore. We can start building wealth for our future because we're in that age range, 40s, 50s maybe, and you do potentially start thinking about the future. Or you go the other way and say, well, I've got all this money now. Let's going to go and do all these things that we want to do. But that can have an impact, right?
Yep.
How does that then, what's the trade-off of your future if you're having this crisis? Because it can be quite an expensive crisis, right?
Yes.
If you're thinking about, classic cars, whatever it may be, will have their own jam that they want to spend their money on. But if you're talking, it's going to cost a couple of $100,000 for you to fulfill these sorts of things, that's a big impact on the future you.
Yep. And especially when, for the majority of us, we don't really know what it is that we need for that next stage of our life, right? If we fast forward to retirement, there are so many things to consider as far as when we want to retire, how much we need during retirement, the extra things like it's, one thing is just covering all of our living expenses and making sure that we can live comfortably. It's quite another when we're talking about we want a holiday every couple of years or, we want to do all these different things. And it's way too late to wait until retirement to go, okay, well, now I'm going to look at it because, we can't rewind the clock and start implementing things to make sure that happens.
Yeah. And I think there's a really important part of this as well that, it's not saying that because you spend money when you start accumulating wealth that it's a bad thing, but you need to be equipped with information to understand how can I do some of these things that I want now and then make sure I'm putting some away for the future so you don't feel like you're completely deprived your entire life and then get to retirement and that's the only time you can sort of enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
But it's understanding, and that's obviously where a really good financial advisor can come in and give you that education and projections and I guess a bit of guidance on how to manage that effectively. But as advisors, we like the data, as the Australians would say.
We do like the data.
So speaking of the stats, we've got one here from 2024. An industry trend report shows that retirement confidence has dropped to a 10-year low. Right, that's pretty significant. Not surprising. The cost of living has increased significantly over the past few years. But nearly half, so 47% of pre-retirees feel unprepared. And the cost of living, that's just expected. And we can probably only then see that gap widening even further.
Yeah. And that's huge, right? 47% is huge. That you can think half of us go into retirement completely, feeling unprepared and really scared about it. They don't know. As I said, when I go back to all those things you need to think about, we just don't know. So, there's a direct correlation between the size of, say, the superannuation and how prepared you feel. So,
Absolutely.
The more financial assets you have, including superannuation, the better you feel about it, which makes sense. The smaller that pool of wealth is, the more stress it's going to bring.
Absolutely. So, Ash, what do you think, let's perhaps just summarise for our listeners what the impacts can be of having these midlife financial crisis moments where you are being impulsive and spending large amounts of cash?
Well, if we sort of bring it back to that retirement aspect, right, the impact, okay? And this is just like an easy example to give, I suppose. As far as, if we talk stats again, there's that retirement standard, I think it's ASFA's 2024 retirement standard, that says that a comfortable retirement costs about $52,000 a year for singles, $73,000 for couples, right? I don't know what you see with your clients, but I'm certainly seeing an increase in the need that for people to comfortably have a good retirement. We're talking $90,000 per annum, which is a big gap.
Yeah, it's definitely increased. I've been in the industry for 9 years now, and when I look at what probably was more of an average income need then versus now, you're probably close to double. Just in that period, which correlates then with that 10-year time frame of this is the biggest in 10 years. Loss of confidence. So that certainly makes sense. But if we think as well, there's also more of a noise factor that comes around. So let's talk a little bit about TikTok influencers. The super fun ads that we see with the funny animals. You would have seen those. And obviously all the economic turmoil that we're going through across the world. It's quite overwhelming, right? And people are bombarded with conflicting advice, all these scary headlines, and it can be quite unsettling. So I guess, how do people then know that they're on the right track?
Well, I think probably ideally you want to see a financial advisor, right? Because every single person's situation is entirely different and your needs are different to the next person's, okay? But, if that's not potentially an option, the next is being proactive. Try and get in as early as possible, learn a little bit about your superannuation, education is key. Knowledge is power, as long as you're trying to gather as much, what's important about that though is making sure that your sources are reliable, okay? Influencers, I would not say are the most reliable source of information.
Oh, we also can't not talk about AI when we're talking about this as well, right? Because so many people, I was actually at my daughter's gymnastics class yesterday and having a chat with the ladies that were there, and someone had mentioned, I've got my whole financial plan from AI.
Wow.
The only input was around investment property. You know, it's interesting that the whole concept of the information that you give it is as good as the output, right? So if you don't know what you don't know and you don't know what information to give it for it to be holistic,
that's right.
how do you know if it's correct?
Exactly.
So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. There's certainly
Very
a new
interesting
rabbit hole that we're going down. Not to
Yeah.
say that AI is bad. I think it can be used in a good way.
Oh,
But
absolutely. When it's sort of very limited in its scope, it would be very helpful. But when you're trying to get a full, comprehensive financial plan that's going to cover all aspects of your life, you know, that's where it can be detrimental, really.
And there's another factor that we need to think about with the improvement of healthcare and how long that we're living now, right?
Yep.
So the longer that we live, the more money that we actually need during retirement. So retirement historically may have only been 15, 20 years. Now we're talking 20, 30 plus years of retirement. So you need even more money, and there's going to be even more inflation during that period of time.
Yeah.
So that's quite scary, and you really do have to think through that. And I think making these good financial decisions is only going to help you get closer to closing that gap in.
Yeah, because at the moment, Centrelink, if you're a couple, completely on Centrelink, it gives you about $45,000 a year. So when we talked before about, you know, our average client is wanting, you know, $80,000, $90,000 a year to live comfortably.
With no debt, mind.
With
this
no
is assuming
debt.
there's no debt that's carried over as well.
That's right. And that's, as I said, just covering living expenses comfortably. If you're living off the Centrelink age pension, that's a huge difference in lifestyle between $80,000, $90,000 a year and 45. That's half. So, you know, if you're well prepared early on in life, that you know that, you know, I'm going to need $80,000, $90,000, you can make the changes nice and early and avoid. So bringing it back to that midlife financial crisis is going, okay, well, when you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you're approaching retirement, you know, there are ways to avoid that stress that comes with, you know, preparing for your future, and you can feel more prepared. So stats, 9 out of 10 people that are advised by financial advisors feel more prepared and more confident in their financial future. That's huge.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm so go and see a financial advisor, because that's going to be your best bet.
Yeah. And I think, you know, when we're talking about all of these factors that we have to consider now, that's really, really overwhelming. And on the topic of avoidance, it's kind of like if you have a midlife financial crisis, it is an avoidant behaviour. It's kind of like saying that future is way too hard to think about. So right now, I'm just not even going to think about it, and I'm just going to spend.
Yeah.
Right? I think there's definitely a layer of avoidance within that. So
how many times do you actually hear from clients that come in that say, I wish I had come in sooner, or I wish I had done something earlier?
Unfortunately, often.
Yeah.
I do think there's a shift, though. I think we're also seeing a lot of younger clients recognise that they've got to do something, because if they leave it too late, there really is a bigger problem with the younger generations, right? So I do think there's a shift.
So perhaps maybe the finfluencers, things like that, maybe they aren't so bad.
I don't know.
To a point. Look, anything that brings attention to, you know, your financials and giving you a boost into, you know, perhaps maybe I should look at this, could be a good thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you're starting to look at those things nice and early, which is good. And obviously the young people are the ones that are on TikTok and Instagram and things like that. So, you know, as much as I'm not keen on people relying on that information, at least it's out there and it's, you know, bringing attention to that need to have a look at it nice and early.
Absolutely. I wonder if we've got any more tips for our listeners that can help them avoid this midlife financial crisis, because I feel like it's an easy trap to fall into, especially with the society that we live in, when we're constantly bombarded with buy, and, you know, the keeping up with the Joneses sort of situations that happen. In terms of steps to avoid this, I think one thing that comes to mind for me is how often do people actually go back and reflect on their values against how they're spending their money? Perfect example of this could be, by the time I'm in my 50s, I want to have more time available for my children who might be teenagers so I can spend more time with them before they leave the nest. That's your from a value set, your family is important. But then you've gone and brought the $200,000 sports car, and now you can't do that anymore because you need to keep working. Yeah. So I think that actually sitting down, and we usually don't do this. How often do you sit at the dinner table with your partner and go, let's talk about our money values?
Oh, really?
Never. Most people never.
Probably me more so than most, just because I'm in that field,
but you're
right?
an advisor,
Exactly.
so you know all about this.
But the typical person, no.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah. And I think that can go a long way for you to actually just, come back, refocus and go, why am I doing this? Is it for me?
I think the very first thing is recognizing that these things are happening. Mm-hmm. You're having these thoughts, right? You're going, oh my gosh, this is too much. I don't know what to do. What should I be doing? Mm-hmm. Recognize that.
Yeah.
And then, to avoid the stress that comes with that and the uncertainty, that's when you need help.
Yeah, yeah. And also there's power in just waiting 24 hours before you buy something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Try and hold off. Mm-hmm. Have a bit more of a think. Walk away.
Yeah.
Walk away for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a breather. Go back to the drawing board. Go, okay, well, these are all the other things that I've got going on in my life right now before I make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. So in summary then, a couple of takeaways from today's conversation would be start early. Start thinking about your finances early in your future. Do your research. Get good people on your side. So maybe a bit of a professional circle, financial advisors, accountants, solicitors.
Accountants at the very least. Speak to your super fund.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
There are people around that can help you. And if you can, have that circle, as you said, you're just going to feel more and more confident. And it's I just want to say, it's really, really important to enjoy your life along the way. So by no means are we sort of saying, don't buy that sports car. But just make sure that you're financially able to, and you're still prepared for your future as well. You need to weigh up both those things and recognise the trade-offs by making those decisions.
Yeah, and just pay attention to your finances. Are you doing these purchases and it's within your means and that's okay, or is it above your means? Just have a look at your budget, have a look at your cash flow.
Yep.
Very simple things that it's really easy to ignore. Yep. Thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. I would really like to hear from anyone that's listened today around what your midlife financial crisis may have been.
Sounds great.
I think a lot of people have been there, right? At least once or twice in their lifetime. And Ash, you just went on a trip to Las Vegas. Can we say that's a financial midlife crisis? You're not midlife yet. I'm not putting you in that bracket yet.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, just to make that clear.
But look, it was a fairly spontaneous trip. So maybe in fact it is that start of the midlife crisis. Maybe I need to see my financial advisor.
Well, your girls are older now, right? And you're pretty set in your career, and it's time for you and your husband to enjoy your life.
Those things. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Ash, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
As always, like, subscribe, give us feedback and leave comments, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Wealth Experience podcast.
Want to invest your hard-earned money but don't know where to start? Alman Partners True Wealth presents AP Direct Invest, your online self-directed investment solution. Choose from 6 low-cost exchange-traded fund portfolios, including 2 socially responsible options. To manage your own investment experience, visit alman.com.au/AP Direct Invest and start your investment journey today. AP Direct Invest, your investment solution. Any financial product advice is general advice only and may not be appropriate for you. Always read the PDS.
The opinions of the presenters are objectively ascertainable and are not intended to be financial product or personal advice.